So the next famous dog dad, for those that weren't paying attention, is Hitler and his many treasured dogs. The most famous, of course, being Blondie.
He loved his Alsatians, that Hitler.
Oh, we're going to get into the Alsatians a
Yeah.
bit. So Hitler had dogs for most of his life, and I'm not talking about Eva here. Hey.
Ooh.
He, in fact, kept such good care of his Huns that when he rehomed his first German Shepherd named Prince, due to the fact he was poor as fucks after World War One, Prince kept breaking away from his new home and coming back to find Hitler. So he must have been a good dog dad. Other dogs of the Fuhrer include Fuchsi. He was a white fox terrier that Hitler had found as a stray. He nurtured and raised him during World War One, and he was reported as being highly distressed and distraught when he went missing during a trench bombing. He said, "How many times as Fromels during the First World War I studied my dog. I used to watch him as if he'd been a man. It was crazy how fond I was of the beast."
Did he draw really shitty portraits of young Fushi?
No, by that point, his dreams of art school had been dashed.
Oh.
So I imagine he never put pen to paper again, watercolor to paper. We talk about German Shepherds a lot. They're both our favorite breed of dog. And anyone who's ever been around German Shepherds know that they are the best dogs for a reason. They're the goodest of boys. And that's probably why, after Prince, Hitler became invested in the breed. And also because they're German. I mean, it fits his aesthetic, as the kids say.
What's a more German breed, a Rottweiler or a German Shepherd?
Definitely a German Shepherd. I mean, the reputation across the seas of German Shepherd was so damaged during World War II, you Americans had to rename them as Alsatians.
No, Alsatian's not an American thing.
I thought it was an American
No,
thing because of
Alsatian's a
World War
European
II.
thing. And,
Oh, is it because of us?
Yeah, no, I think it's I don't know if it's a British thing, but it's definitely a European thing. So when I was in South Africa, my childhood dog was an Alsatian named Benji. And I was
Good boy,
very,
Benji.
very close to Benji. He was a great dog. Had him pretty much like throughout South Africa, but then also in high school and college. We brought him to Michigan actually. But he was an Alsatian. And Alsatians are bigger than a German Shepherd. Like he was a big fucking dog. That
He
dog
was
probably
also
weighed about
racist.
150 pounds. He was
And he was racist.
he was racist. In South Africa they would train dogs to be very vicious.
Yeah, good old Benji. So German Shepherds are known as the Germanski or Hund, meaning being close to a wolf, and they're the it dog of the Nazi era. Max van Stefans, he was the developer of the German Shepherd. Like, he started really concentrating on building out the pedigree. And he said they are creatures of pure blood, where by proper breeding, all unevenness has been eliminated. They far surpass all mongrels.
That is true though, because I remember Benji, when we got him, we had his papers, and they went back like, I don't know, 8 generations of Alsatians to like where and I was stunned. I was like, I can't believe you'd have the genealogy of this German Shepherd printed out on papers, but you have to do that in order to prove
Yeah.
this lineage.
I think they have to do that for like we had a German Shepherd. We had a Springer Spaniel growing up, and he was a pedigree. You'd never know it to look at him though, because he was nearly all black, which is kind of rare for a Springer Spaniel. But his generations went back yonks. He was a bit of a shithead of a dog though. He was very moody.
Mm.
He wasn't a good boy. He was a good boy, but he wasn't a good boy. So Boyre Sachs in the book Animals in the Third Reich, Pets, Scapegoats, and the Holocaust, I want this book just for the title alone, said this dog was intended to embody the virtues of the German people, and its inception clearly anticipated the Nazi attempts to breed human beings back to a primeval Aryan stock. So it's kind of like
Makes sense.
mirroring what's going on
Yep.
at the same time.
An Ubermensch, Uberhund.
Uberhund and a Ubermensch. So Mukel was his next dog, born in 1928, and she was the mother of Blonda in 1930. Bella was another German Shepherd. They bought Bella to keep the old dog's company in 1942. And of course, here comes the famous and most beloved Blondie, who was a beautiful and intelligent pedigree, and Hitler said almost human. Martin Bormann, we covered his sex life in episode 840. He had gifted the pup to his boss in 1941, and she would be Hitler's constant companion, even after his move to the Führerbunker in January of 45. The joke amongst the inner circle was that he loved the dog more than Eva, and he would publicly demonstrate that love by kissing and hugging her and playing tricks. That was with Blondi, not Eva. And he would also publicly hit her for any disobedience. Eva, not Blondi. That's jokes. He would hit Blondi. With a whip as well. He would whip Blondi.
Yeah, he was brutal. He was brutal with Blondi, and he would punish for disobedience. But immediately after doing that and leaving the dog whimpering, he would go back to fawning over her as if nothing happened.
This kind of reminds me of you and Calvin.
I don't brutally whip Calvin. I do scream at him. I scream horrible swear words, like things that like you heard in the Exorcist film. It's like unholy things at that animal.
Do you curse his life?
I curse everything. I curse his parents. I put a pox on the breeder. Yeah, no, it's nasty, especially when I'm hungover.
Oh yeah, it's terrible. Eva, she obviously disliked all the attention that Blondi got. She preferred her two Scottish terriers that Hitler had gifted her. Hitler had named them Negus and Stashu. Eva would secretly kick Blondi under the dining table, and she also hated sharing a bed with the mutt. So that shows you everything you need to know about fucking Eva. What a dick.
Yeah, what a bitch. That's hilarious, though, that he made her share the bed with him. Do you think Blondi watched when he was hitting Eva doggy style?
I think Hitler would be looking at the dog square in the eye for every horrible moment that he had to shag her, because he didn't really like Eva. She was just there. In March or early April of 45, Blondi, not Eva, she had a litter of pups with the dog of high-ranking Nazi-style king Paul Ludwig Troost. It was actually his wife's dogs, Harras, that sired the pups. His wife was Gerhardine Gerdi. Or Gerdi Troost. She was a fully fledged member of the Nazi Party. She was an architect, interior designer, and decorator. Paul Troost was also an architect, and his Haus de Kunst, his Haus de Kunst was finished construction in 1937, and it was Nazi Germany's first monumental structure. And it's still there in Munich. It's now a non-collecting art gallery for those that like dark tourism and want to go and see something Nazi. Paul died at the age of 55 in January of 34. His gravestone, also still there if you want to go and visit it. And his widow Gerdi carried on in his Nazi honor. And she also helped supervise and helped build the construction of the Haus de Kunst. I love it. I want to, when we move into our own little flat, can we just get a plaque outside that said Haus de Kunst?
Maybe switch the T and the S.
So I know this isn't a Nazi episode, but we're just going to do one last fact about Gerdi before we go back to Blondi. So during denazification, she was actually deemed as less responsible, despite the fact she was part of the inner circle. And she remained friends with members of the inner circle after the war. She resumed her work. She lived in Upper Bavaria, and she died at the age of 98 on January 30th, 2003. When I read that, I was like, oh, she died in 2003. I was like, that really wasn't too long ago. It's 20 fucking years ago. I still think like the early 2000s was last week. Don't you?
I like how she was deemed as less responsible, too.
Despite the fact she helped like architect. Although Troost wasn't the favorite architect of Nazi Germany, that was Albert Speer. He designed a lot for Hitler and came up with tons of early stuff. And so did she. And she would furnish out all the apartments for everyone. So she's more than less responsible. And she was also still a Nazi, basically, till she died. So Hitler loved these pups. He named one Wolf, and he even began training her. One of the pups was reserved for Eva's sister Gretel, and we talked about her in episode 842. Yeah. So The Downfall, great movie. You've seen Downfall, right?
It was a great film.
Long, but very good. Was coming. And on April the 29th, 1945, Hitler learned of the gruesome and righteous death of Mussolini by the hands of vengeful Italian partisans. The Soviets, the ones who really saved the day in World War II, yes, dear, they were closing in.
You know how I feel about that.
Yeah, you don't like hearing the truth. I know, Americans don't.
The Russians who actually started the war, as well as won the war, at least defeated the Nazis with American munitions. But yes, you can hold on to that.
Soviets
fantasy.
did it. Yes, and then you guys started a smear campaign immediately afterwards.
You can hold on
to
that. Yeah, because the Soviets are not with that. They're without any kind of blame But
No,
sure,
they were
sure.
great. Good lads. Good lads. By this point, Hitler trusted no one, least of all the snidey and traitorous Himmler, the one who had provided the cyanide capsules to the bunker. In fact, it was also around this time that Hitler famously said, "The more I know people, the more I love dogs." Hitler's now wanting to kill one blondie with two stones, so he ordered his personal doctor, Werner Hasse, to test one on his beloved blondie. Hitler also had a personal trainer slash vet inside the bunker with him named Fritz Torno. He was also the dog handler, obviously, because he's the vet. So Fritz forced open Blondie's mouth as the doctor crushed the vial against her teeth. Fritz began crying. He's completely upset, as did Hitler, who broke down over her death when the cyanide quickly worked its almond-smelling magic. And he is absolutely inconsolable. The next day, April the 30th, Hitler and Eva committed suicide. They did commit suicide. There's no conspiracy.
Yeah, I read that Erna Flegel, one of the two survivors from Hitler's Führer bunker, claimed in 2005 that the death of Blondie had a bigger impact than the death of Eva on those inside the lair. So I don't think Eva was well liked by anyone.
She wasn't really, but I bet Blondie was.
Yeah, I'm sure
And
Blondie. Who could hate Blondie?
she's a good girl. And for those thinking, what about Wolf and her four sisters? Maybe they made it out of the bunker, right? Please. Well, Fritz Torno shot all the puppies in the garden next to the bunker. He also shot Ava's two dogs, and he also shot his own dachshund, proving that he was indeed worse than Hitler. Just fucking a dog
Terrible
massacre that
person.
day. Fritz was captured alive, along with four other living occupants of the bunker, Werner Hasse being one of them. He was taken back to the Soviet Union. He was tortured for good reason in the infamous Lubyanka prison in Moscow, which is the former KGB HQ, also still standing.
He totally deserved it.
Yes, he did. He was released back to West Germany in the mid-1950s, settling in the northwest of Germany in Dorsten. Maybe trying to help heal old wounds. He ended up working in a dog food factory, which still exists today in Gelsenkirchen. So I actually tried looking for the company. There's tons of dog food factories out there. I bet the town stinks. But my German isn't very good. So if there are any locals or if there's anybody who's been to the area listening, DM us, because it's like part of Nazi history in a way. I found an old post from his great niece who said that his life ended in great paranoia and conspiracy theories when he died at the end of the 90s.
I wonder how old he was.
He'll have
Obviously,
been
I mean, I guess he was tortured by the
80s.
Russians, but he was never hung, or
No.
tried for his crimes. I read after the battle in Berlin ended, May 2nd, 1945, the remains of Hitler, Braun, and two dogs were discovered. One of the dogs is thought to be Blondie and her offspring, Wolf. But they were discovered in a shell crater by a unit of the SMERSH, SMERSH, the Soviet Counterintelligence Agency. And Blondie was exhumed and then photographed by the Soviets.
Yeah, I was looking at these pictures of like dead Blondie, and it's got to be Blondie. It's so slim because Blondie was one of those very skinny, sleek-looking German shepherds. She wasn't fluffy; she was sleek, and that dog just looks exactly like her. She's also got a very wolf-like face, and it just looks exactly like her.
Well, did they at least bury her, or did they just leave her in the rubble?
You would have thought that he would have tried to set fire to all of them, but maybe after shooting 4 puppies, 2 dogs, and a dachshund, he just didn't have it in his heart to like set fire to the corpses. Maybe just buried them.
I bet the Russians
Poor
probably ate
puppies.
them.